This video is step 2 of the weight reduction, removing the aircon. The first thing I'm going to do is remove some of the access panels so we can have a better look at what we're going to be removing. Engine access panel here, and the spare wheel tray. The aircon radiator and condenser are under here. Okay, we can have a better look now. Here you can see the primary radiator and the aircon radiator, and then feeding off that, I believe this is the condenser, and the lines go, I think, through the tunnel through the center of the car, and they pop out here. Here, and then they go into this joiner to some flexible hoses, and then over to the compressor itself. Looks like there might be one more panel that I need to remove to get access here, which is the plastic under tray. The bolts that hold on this radiator are accessed from underneath on two sides, and I think one at the back here. I'm going to start by disconnecting some of the lines. You can see here on the back of the radiator, this is the pipe that comes from the compressor on the engine side. It comes through the radiator out on this side, goes through this condenser, up and around and into the cabin at this point. So it goes into the heater core inside, and then comes back out of that and goes to here, back down, and then this line goes back to the compressor again. So it's just all one big circuit. I'm going to start by disconnecting some of these connections here. I can't really get to the hose connection at the back of this aircon radiator, so I'm going to try and disconnect the 3 bolts that hold it in place first, and then maybe tilt it back and then disconnect it. So just have it hanging down now off the hoses. I now have the hoses loose and hanging down under the car. That's one. And this is the other. They both go down the well, it's not a trans tunnel, but the tunnel down the centre of the car. I found some rubber bungs to put in the end here because I don't plan on stripping these out and tracing it all the way back to the heater core. I'm going to leave that part in. Next, I'm going to move under the car and trace those pipes back. I'm struggling to separate the pipes here, so instead I'm going to move to the engine side and see if I can do that and somehow pull them out. Might be tricky. I'm going to start with this flexible line that goes from the compressor and over to these hard lines here and try and remove that. Now that I have the flexible lines disconnected, I'm going to try and find the route that these take, which means removing the other access panel in here. Okay, so this is where they come through and then they continue down the front of the engine there and into the tunnel. I'm not even going to attempt to film this because I know it's going to be an absolute bear to get these out. Fingers crossed. Well, just as I expected, they were a pain to get out. I couldn't actually separate this union here. It was just completely seized on and it was rounding this bolt, so I had to snip it unfortunately, but the rest of it was kept intact. Next up will be the compressor, which is back here. The first step of removing the compressor is to take the belt off. Very easy to get to. Well, I didn't bother filming any of that. The compressor is out. It was just way too confined in there to get a camera in. I ended up taking the airbox off just to get a bit of access to some of the brackets. You can see the individual throttle bodies there. And here is the compressor itself. Basically you disconnect it from this bracket and then you can pull the compressor out. I just reassembled this to show you the bracket. There's not that many bolts, they're just really awkward to get to. And I snipped the belt off because it requires you taking off the alternator belt, which I couldn't be arsed doing. So now that I have everything out, I'm going to weigh it all. The fun time. So I have a question for all 5 of my viewers. I'm about to put in this under tray and spare wheel tray. But now that the radiator, the aircon radiator has been removed from over here, The air coming in from the front of the car is probably less likely to go through this rad now and just travel around it into the back of the bay here. So I'm a little bit worried that there won't be sufficient cooling for the engine. So some options might be that I would put in a kind of a blanking plate here that would mimic the kind of location of the old aircon rad. Another option might be to build something a bit more involved that would funnel the air from over here and into it over here. I don't really have any experience with fabrication or tools for that, but what are your thoughts on this? Is it going to be an issue or will it be fine? So step 2 of the weight reduction is now complete. The compressor weighs in at 7.1 kilos. The radiator, including the fan, shroud and everything, comes in at 4.1 kilos. And the pipework is 3 kilos. So the total removed for all of this is 14.2 kilos. Definitely worthwhile for something I was never using. I'm just carrying around all that excess weight. You can go further and take out some parts from under the dash in the heater core, but it's an absolutely massive job, and this is the bulk of the weight for the aircon system. So that's all the obvious stuff for the weight reduction now removed. I've taken out just over 44 kilos, if you can believe that, from a car as light as this. So I think we're off to a good start. I'll have to have a think now, do some research about if I want to go further and what those steps will be. So long.